Ever feel like you're just drowning in to-dos, but never really making any headway on the things that actually matter?
Yeah, yeah.
You're definitely not alone.
Right.
So many people struggle with that feeling of just constant overwhelm.
It's so common.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're tackling that to-do list mayhem head on.
Love it.
We're taking inspiration from Bryant Tracy's Control Your Time, Control Your Life.
Oh, classic.
It really is. And it's become like the productivity Bible for a reason. People swear by it.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
You know, what I find fascinating about Tracy's approach is how he really gets to the core of what's wrong with most of our to-do lists.
What do you mean?
Well, most to-do lists, they just list things, right?
Right.
But they don't actually make you consider how important those things actually are.
Right.
Like, what happens if you don't do them?
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about checking boxes. It's about understanding the weight of each task.
Exactly. It's about the cost of inaction.
Yeah.
Most of us, we prioritize by urgency, right? Like, what's the loudest thing streaming for our attention?
Right, right. It's like whoever's yelling the loudest gets my attention first.
Exactly. But Tracy, he wants us to think differently. He wants us to ask, what if I don't do this at all?
So it's less about, is this urgent, and more about, what are the ripple effects if this thing just completely falls off my radar?
Exactly. And sometimes, that little task that you keep pushing aside, it could have surprisingly huge consequences in the long run if you just never get to it.
Okay, I'm hooked. So what kind of scenarios are we talking about here? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Tracy uses the example of, like, a meeting with a potential client.
Okay, yeah.
Let's say this meeting could lead to a massive service contract for you.
Huge deal.
Right. Now compare that to, say, grabbing a cup of coffee.
Okay, yeah.
Missing that client meeting,
Yeah.
that could cost you a fortune.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'd much rather skip the coffee than miss out on a life-changing opportunity just because it got lost in the to-do list shuffle.
Exactly. And that's really what this method is all about. It's like opening your eyes to those potential consequences.
So how do we go from, oh my gosh, my to-do list is giving me anxiety, to actually using this cost of inaction idea? Is that where the ABCD method comes in?
Yes. It's all about taking action, right? So you've looked at your task. You've thought about, what if I don't do this? Now the ABCD method gives you a way to actually prioritize those tasks.
So it's like taking all that thinking and turning it into something I can actually use. Exactly.
Okay, break it down for me. What goes where in this ABCD system?
So your A tasks, those are like your VIPs. They get your full attention because they have the biggest consequences if you don't get them done.
Like that client meeting we were talking about.
Exactly. That's a prime example of an A task.
Okay, high stakes, big impact. Got it. So what about B?
B tasks are still important, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but they don't have that same do it now or the world explodes feeling.
Okay, so like less DEFCON 1, more like
Right.
important, but I can breathe for a minute.
Exactly. Like you definitely need to do them, but not at the cost of an A task.
Makes sense. What about all those little things? The ones that always seem to like multiply on my list, that's C, right? You got it. Those C tasks, they're like the nice to haves, the things that would be great to check off the list, but if they wait a little bit longer, it's not a catastrophe.
I think I have a feeling a lot of my A tasks are actually C tasks in disguise.
It happens to the best of us. It's all about figuring out what's really important and what can wait.
Okay, and last but definitely not least, we have D. Is it wrong that I'm most excited about this one?
I know, right? It's so satisfying.
Right, sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about doing less.
100%. So, okay, we've got our A, B, C, and D piles. The D pile is hopefully like shredded and out of my life.
Exactly, gone.
But where do we go from there? We're not just working through the alphabet, are we?
You're right, there's a little more to it than that. The really important part happens when you take another look at that A list. Okay. Because those are the big hitters, right?
Exactly. Those are the tasks with the biggest potential consequences, good or bad.
So even within the A's, we're still prioritizing.
Right. It's like a ranking within a ranking. Tracy calls it finding your A1 task.
Okay, so like the MVP of my to-do list.
Pretty much. It's the thing that if you get it done, it's going to have the absolute biggest positive impact on your goals.
So it's not just about being busy, it's about focusing on the things that really move the needle.
And that's the beauty of it. It takes the pressure off, you know? You don't have to do everything at once. You just have to figure out that A1 and give it everything you've got.
This has been so helpful. So for our listeners who are ready to ditch the overwhelm and try this whole consequences over urgency thing, what's like the one thing you really want them to take away from all of this?
I'd say think about your week ahead. What's that one task, that one thing that if you get it done, everything else is going to feel easier?
I love that. It's so simple, but so powerful. I bet everyone's hitting pause right now and grabbing their notebooks.
I hope so.
And hey, while you're at it, tell us about your A1 on social media. Use the episode hashtag so we can cheer you on. Until next time, deep divers, go out and crush those to-do lists.